Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. Cumberland Outdoorsman here with you again. And today is kind of a special day for me because just yesterday I was able to break the 4,000 subscriber threshold. It's been about a year or so now since I broke the 1,000 subscriber threshold, and all I can say is the channel is growing steadily, kind of slowly, but it is growing, thanks to folks like you out there. And I've been doing this for a few years now, and it's been a lot of fun for me to get outdoors in the woods and the fields and the streams and lakes and share my outdoor experiences with you. It's just a tremendous amount of gratifying experiences in the past, knowing that I can share that with someone out there instead of just experiencing it by myself. So thanks a lot for coming along. I do appreciate it. And I also enjoy sharing my equipment that I like to use in the outdoors with those of you that are interested, and many of you that have the same kind of equipment, whether you go hunting or fishing or just target shooting or whatever. You know, there's a lot to be said for the pride and joy of ownership and owning some truly nice equipment. So in celebration today, I'd like to feature an American classic rifle in two different versions and in two truly classic calibers. And the one I'm talking about is none other than the Remington Model 700, and I've got two of them here behind me on the table. The first one I'd like to tell you about is this Remington 700 ADL. The ADL is the plainer version of the Model 700. It does not have a detachable floor plate, but other than that, it's pretty much all the same. The stocks aren't quite as fancy, although they have fairly nice stocks on them. The ADL is no longer available because it was replaced in 2005, I believe, by the SPS model. But these are still readily available at gun shows and pawn shops, yard sales sometimes, you know, or you can see listings for them in the newspaper where people are trying to sell their old guns, maybe to buy a newer version or whatever, or a different model. But there's really nothing wrong with the Remington ADL in terms of a good working man's rock solid hunting rifle. You know, it's a great little rifle to take out in the woods. And this one here is a short action, and it's chambered in the ever popular 243 Winchester. Here's an example of that cartridge. This one here is loaded with a 95 grain Hornady ELDX bullet. Good performer right there. The short actions in the Remington Model 700 are very rigid, so I think that's why a lot of people prefer a shorter action. And that's why a lot of the shorter action magnums have become quite popular in the last 10 or 20 years. This one here is topped with a Bushnell 3x9 scope, and it's held on with a vintage Burris bridge style mount with highly polished and blued vintage Burris rings. It's equipped with a 22-inch hammer forged barrel, and it's extremely accurate. It's a very, very accurate gun, as most all Remington Model 700s are right out of the box. I mean, back in the day when these were readily available, just about any Remington 700 that you took out of the box was just a real tack driver. That's rifle after rifle after rifle, and that's been my experience in the past. The safety is right here on the side, right where it should be. And this one here came with American walnut stock with cut checkering, as you can see here. And I've successfully used this little rifle several times in the woods. And there's nothing wrong with the 243 caliber if you use the right bullets. I think it was originally intended to be a varmint caliber or a varmint cartridge, but sportsmen soon found that when they loaded the 243 or the 6mm with heavier bullets, they were very well suited to deer-sized game. Pronghorn antelopes, whitetail, mule deer even, you know, they were more than adequate. So the 243 is here to stay. I would have to say it's still extremely popular. It's a very mild shooting cartridge, not much recoil at all, so it's a good caliber to start out a youngster, or if you have a wife or a girlfriend that's kind of sensitive to recoil, then the 243 is a good choice. The next rifle I have here is the BDL version. It's a little bit fancier than the ADL. It has the drop-away floor plate, which is activated by this button just inside the trigger housing. There you can see the floor plate drops away so that you can expend the cartridges that are inside the magazine well. It also has an extremely smooth bolt throw. These earlier models, this is a model 1971 I believe, have very smooth bolts. They come from the factory, highly polished and jeweled. So, you know, when you close the action or operate the action, you get a very smooth cycling process. And this one here is chambered in the ever popular 30-06. 30-06 has been with us for a long time, folks, and it's still the top choice amongst a lot of big game hunters. If you've got a rifle chambered in 30-06, then you're very well equipped to handle anything on the North American continent. And that particular caliber, the 30-06, in different loadings, has successfully taken every big game animal in the world. So that speaks a lot for the 30-06. This one here is loaded with 165 grain boat tail soft points. That's the 30-06 right there. I could go into detail about that caliber, but there's so much information out there that you know, you can Google it, get online, and learn all you need to about the 30-06 in case you're considering that caliber as a choice for yourself. But believe me, you're not going to go wrong. It's a very capable round. It's extremely versatile, and if you hand load, you can pretty much tailor the loads to your liking. You know, you can go from a light load that doesn't recoil very much all the way up to, you know, a good full house heavy load that will handle anything, any big game animal on this continent. But that's the ADL version. It came with skip line checkering. As you can see here, this is cut checkering. Came with a hooded front sight, fully adjustable rear sight. This one also is topped with a Bushnell vintage 3x9 scope chief. These are very desirable scopes now. It's pretty much period correct for this particular rifle, and it's held on with a loopholed bridge style mount with loopholed rings, all steel construction, and it's just an absolute joy. Whoever had this rifle before took really good care of it. There's not a scratch on it anywhere. I mean, it's just almost like in brand new condition. So I'm proud to own this gun, and I installed this recoil pad here because 30-06 does have some recoil, but I needed a little bit more length back here, so, you know, for myself, it serves me very well. The Remington Model 700 was introduced in 1962. That's 2 years before I was born. But anyway, this one here in particular, as I mentioned, I think I said it was a 1971 model, and as you can see here on the side, it has the Remington 700 designation. There was a predecessor to the Model 700 itself, but it was still the Model 700 design, and there were 3 models available that were introduced in 1948, and I've got one on the table here. I'll be going over some of the details of that rifle as I'm showing it to you. The three models are the 721, the 722, and the model 725. This one here is a Remington model 721, as you can see on the side of the receiver. This particular one here is chambered in 30-06 Springfield. And the similarities between these earlier models and the model 700 of today are very, very close. I mean, there's not much that I can see that's really that different. The bolt is pretty much the same. These are a push feed design instead of being a controlled feed design like in the Mauser Model 98 or the Winchester Model 70 that have that huge claw extractor on the side. But as you can see on the bolt face here, they have Remington's famous 3 rings of steel, this being the first ring here where the cartridge head is actually housed inside of the bolt face. And you've got these 2 massive locking lugs that are opposing at the head of the bolt. The cocking mechanism here on the rear is pretty much the same. They have a very fast lock time, which contributes to the great accuracy of the Model 700 design. And the extractor is this little plunger right here on the side. That's what actually pushes the cartridge out when you get ready to eject and pull the bolt back. The safety is right here on the side, just like in the modern day Remington Model 700. The older versions like this actually lock the bolt in place when the safety is on. So you can't open the bolt with the safety on, you have to turn the safety off to be able to operate the bolt. All of these early models, and I believe all of the earlier Model 700s, came out with American black walnut stocks. I think these earlier versions all had a plain stock. None of them were checkered, to my knowledge. And the barrels were all hammer forged, which were also a great aid in the accuracy of these guns. And since the beginning, they were produced in Ilion, New York. And I believe there is also now a new version of the Model 700 that's still being made in Ilion, New York. So the milling machines and everything have reopened, and they're starting to produce the Model 700 once again. I'm sure this is a fine shooting rifle here. There's nothing wrong with these older models if they're kept in good condition. You can still find these sometimes in the gun racks of pawn shops or gun shows. You know, they're still available, but be prepared to pay a pretty good price because these old classics are becoming somewhat of a collector's item now. And ones like this one here that's in really good shape serve themselves and their owners very well in the deer woods or wherever else you want to take them. They're truly an American classic hunting rifle by all respects of the word. Got a little bit of a wind gust today. Now I'll show you some of the similarities in this newer version of the Model 700. Like I said, this is a 1971 version. When you cycle the action and you put the safety on, the bolt stays locked. You cannot operate the bolt. You have to switch the safety off in order to cycle the bolt. Here once again, I'm going to show you the same thing you saw just a minute ago in the bolt head design. There you have the extractor on the side and the ejector claw that's housed inside of this first ring of steel where the cartridge head will be when you load one of these cartridges. And I'm going to go ahead and put one in here and show you. That's how it contains the head of the cartridge. It's completely seated inside of the head of the bolt. And you have these 2 massive locking lugs just like on the Model 721. Nothing has changed there. The cocking mechanism is still pretty much the same. The bolt handle design has been restyled somewhat. They have this checkering which aids in cycling the bolt so that you don't slip. But other than that, they're in pretty much the same operating condition here. The newer versions of the Model 700 do not have this highly polished bolt body. This one here is polished and jeweled from the factory. So you get an ultra smooth operating action, as you can see here. So anyway, that's pretty much hitting on the basics of these truly classic American rifles. I've got a little bit of additional information. Here I've got a book that I bought several years ago. For those of you that really like bolt action rifles, the history and how they're made, the construction, and the dates of manufacture and all of the specifics, I would recommend this book right here. This was written by the late Frank de Haas. This is the expanded 3rd edition, and it includes all of the world's finest bolt action rifles and rifle designs. Here I've saved the page for the Remington Model 700 and all other models included in that line. And he goes into detail on the actions, how the actions are when they're broken down. All of the designs inside the action, the trigger group, sectional views. They go into the Model 600, which is also the same basic design. All of the different models of the 700, the different versions. So there's a wealth of information here. I mean, really, it's a book that I would recommend very highly. Here's a sectional view of the Model 700, including a detailed breakdown of the trigger mechanism, showing all of the different intricate parts inside the trigger mechanism, which is something that I need to talk about here, because there's been so much controversy surrounding the Remington Model 700 trigger, and there have been lawsuits and all kinds of controversial information that's been put out there regarding the Remington Model 700. And let me just say that the Model 700 trigger was inherently an ingenious design. What happened is there's so many different stories that surround the Model 700 trigger mechanism. But basically what people are saying is that the gun would go off without pulling the trigger whenever the safety was disengaged. And a lot of that can be attributed to, first of all, people adjusting the trigger that are not qualified, that are not authorized to do so. The triggers are adjustable, but they're preset from the factory, and they have a protective coating on those trigger adjustments to keep anyone from tampering with that trigger. Okay, now you can remove that. I shouldn't be saying this, but you can remove that coating on there and adjust the triggers yourselves. But unless you know exactly what you're doing, don't fiddle around with that Model 700 trigger. They don't need to be adjusted. They're just fine from the factory the way they are. If you do feel the need to have your trigger adjusted, then go to a competent gunsmith, somebody that knows what they're doing, so that the gun is not made unsafe. I've got a rough diagram here that I've drawn out myself of the Remington Model 700 trigger, and there are 3 adjustments here. You've got one on top here. This one here is what controls the forward travel, or the over travel, and what it does is when you pull the trigger back, it pivots on a pin at the bottom, and it adjusts the amount that the top of that trigger can travel forward, so that you don't have excess over travel after the squeeze of the trigger. Then the second one here is the trigger spring pull adjustment. What that is it returns the trigger back into battery after the trigger is squeezed, and it exerts a certain amount of pressure so that you feel some resistance when you're pulling the trigger back, okay? That and the sear engagement are what determine the amount of trigger pull that you have. But once again, a lot of people lighten that up to the point where the trigger is actually dangerous. The trigger does not go back into full battery, and the sear catches right here at the top, right here, at a very limited point, a very tiny point there, and sometimes that trigger can be jarred and the gun goes off. So a lot of times these triggers are made and adjusted to the point where the gun is unsafe. It's dangerous. True, a gun should not go off unless the trigger is pulled, okay? It should not happen. But a lot of the accidents that have happened have either been through someone unqualified adjusting the trigger that's not authorized, or from bad maintenance. Either the grease inside of the trigger has gotten hard and stiff and caused a dangerous situation, or dirt and debris have gotten down into the trigger mechanism and interfered with the working parts. But overall, the Remington Model 700 trigger is a good trigger design. I've had mine for years. I've never had a problem with them. I keep them maintained, and they've worked absolutely perfectly and served me just well. So, you know, I just had to mention that because there is an issue surrounding the Remington Model 700 trigger. Another thing I'd like to mention is that the Remington Model 700 came in a huge variety of calibers. There were so many calibers available to the Remington Model 700 design, and here I've got some that I wrote down. These are 47 different calibers, and I'll post this on the video for those of you that are interested. And the calibers that were available range anywhere from the tiny 17 Remington, which is .17 caliber, the same caliber as a BB or a pellet in a pellet gun, and I believe that was based on a .222 Remington case, all the way up to the .458 Remington Magnum, which is a truly massive cartridge. And all of the popular calibers, such as the .308, the .243, the 7mm Remington Magnum, the .300 Winchester Magnum, you know, the .300 Savage, the .338, the 7mm Mauser, the .270 Winchester, all of them were available in the Remington Model 700 in different configurations and different designs in the past. The ones that I would covered in this video are non-tactical. This is an outdoor channel, so I wanted to feature hunting rifles for the outdoorsman and the hunter. This is not about the tactical versions, but there's something that I do need to mention, that the Remington Model 700 was also adopted by the U.S. Marine Corps as the M40 in 1966. And then later on, another version of the Remington Model 700, the M24 sniper rifle, was adopted by the U.S. Army in 1986. So that's just, you know, a testament to how good that rifle design is, that our military has adopted that rifle design for their own uses. So, you know, what more can be said? It's an absolutely perfect rifle in most cases. It's not as highly refined as the Mauser Model 98 or the Winchester Model 70, but it perfectly serves all purposes for the outdoorsman and the hunter alike. Well, folks, with that being said, I want to take a few shots with my .243 here using the Hornady ELDX. This is a 90 grain tipped boat tail bullet, as you can see here. I loaded a few cartridges, and what I want to do is shoot into some water jugs and see if I can recover one of these bullets. I'm really curious to see what kind of performance that we'll get out of the 243 Remington Model 700 that I have here on the table. So come along with me. Let's take a couple of shots and see how well this rifle will perform with these newly designed bullets. Well folks, I got my little Remington 700 here on my shooting bench. Downrange at 100 yards, I've got a series of 1-gallon water jugs, and I'm going to be firing one of these ELDX Hornady 90 grain bullets into it to see what kind of performance we're going to get at that distance. So let me get the camera on the target and we'll take a shot, see what kind of performance we'll get. Okay, here we go. Okay, rifle's unloaded. Everything's secure. Let's head downrange here. Let's see, we've got this jug here demolished. This is the first jug, completely demolished. The second jug, and then the third jug here. Don't know if we have a bullet in here, but we'll see what we've got here. Oh, there it is. There's what's left of that bullet. Well, that really mushroomed way back, but it retained what little lead that it had left in it. Well, folks, looks like we were fortunate enough to be able to capture that bullet in that water jug test. There's really not a whole lot left of it. There you can see the front of it. That's the lead core. And then that's the base of the bullet at the bottom. But you know, performance-wise, it did pretty well. It had what I would say truly explosive results on the first two jugs. In fact, that's where I would say it expended nearly all of its energy. And then the third jug, it went into that jug, and that's where it was captured. So the copper jacket peeled completely back, way over the base of the bullet, and the lead core did retain itself at the base of the bullet. So, you know, that's pretty good performance. I would say on deer-sized and pronghorn antelope-sized game, probably out to about 250, 300 yards or so, the 243 serves its purpose quite well. And in a classic platform and design such as the Remington Model 700, you really just can't go wrong. Accuracy wise, that ELDX bullet did pretty well. I shot 5 shots here off camera. As you can see, one of them went a little bit outside of the group. Not sure what happened. That could have been me. But all 4 other shots, all 4 subsequent shots there, clustered into the size of my thumbnail there. I can easily cover that with a dime at 100 yards. So you know that ELDX is showing quite a bit of promise. And I'm sure that many of you out there that have tried that particular type of bullet have had satisfactory results with it as well. But anyway, I wanted to go ahead and close out this video and saying thank you. I'm glad you came along. I really enjoyed having you with me, and thanks again to all my subscribers and followers out there. I truly appreciate all of the support that you've given me through the years. And I'm going to continue trying to bring you more good quality videos that show you test results like the one I just shared with you, and also outdoor experiences that I have so that I can share that with you as well. So remember, if you like to go hunting, fishing, camping, shooting, hiking, whatever it may be, I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Also remember, hit that like button, smash that bell icon, and subscribe. That way you'll know when more videos like this will be coming your way. So until next time, you all take care of yourselves, stay safe, shoot safely, and enjoy the great outdoors. I'll see you next time.